When does taste develop? Before, after birth, when the child is 3 years, 6 years? When is the most important time?
We know that taste develops before birth. Actually, by the last trimester, we've learned that children are responsive to sweet taste and to other basic tastes. And so that means that even before birth, it's important for children to be exposed to healthy flavors from the mother's diet.
Does that mean if the mother has a sweet tooth, the baby will also have one?
That's a good question, and a very interesting one. There are many factors that determine infants' preferences. And so mother's diet, the types of foods that she's consuming during pregnancy and breastfeeding play a role, but also children's genetics, the types of taste receptors they have, play a role in their later preferences, and the types of solid foods that they're exposed to after birth play an important role.
So what would you recommend to a mother during later pregnancy? To eat a variety of foods, vegetables, then the baby will like it as well? Or is this not true?
So I am a researcher, but not a clinician, but based on the research, I would suggest that mothers eat a variety of healthful foods, foods that are important to her and to her culture, that she plans on exposing her child to later on. And in this way, children will be exposed to these flavors, they will learn about these flavors and remember them, and will be more willing to accept them after birth.
Now, we had this discussion already, but it seems to be very interesting to have your comments on alcohol intake. Alcohol is not alcohol. Beer is not wine, and wine is not hard liquor. Let's stick to beer. There are certain regions in the world where beer is considered to be nutrition, like in Bavaria, Germany. This is low alcohol beer, but mothers drink it during pregnancy and during lactation as well. Does this influence the baby in terms of later taste perception? I like beer, I also want to drink beer.
So we know that during pregnancy and during lactation, the flavor of alcohol is actually transmitted to the amniotic fluid, just like the flavor of foods are, and also to breast milk. And so when mother drinks a beer during the later stages of pregnancy, that fetus is also experiencing the flavor of alcohol. And if we believe that early exposures to these flavors increase familiarity, and in turn familiarity increases children's liking for these flavors, one might predict that children will have more of a preference for alcohol if they've been exposed. And there is experimental evidence to show that children who had mothers who drank during lactation actually showed more of a preference for a toy that was doused in alcohol, that had that alcohol odor, relative to a toy that smelled like vanilla. They mouthed the toy more and they interacted with the toy more.
So it's good to be careful with
for many reasons. That's right. There is also a common belief that alcohol increases milk letdown during lactation, and actually it's quite the opposite. It actually decreases milk letdown during lactation. This is work that my colleague Janina Pepino and Julie Manella have done at Monell.
And other drugs? For example, drug addiction, if somebody is taking illegal drugs, what happens here to the child?
Well, of course, there are physiological effects of taking drugs during pregnancy, and in some cases, children will be born addicted to those drugs. In terms of flavor, taste, and odor, it depends on the taste and odor profile of the drug. We have data with alcohol and with tobacco, and I don't know of any additional data for other drugs, but one would suspect that the flavor profile of the drug would be transmitted
How about
to the
tobacco?
child. Tobacco smoke, which is inhaled by the mother, is also transmitted to amniotic fluid and to breast milk. And early exposures to tobacco in the home, even if the parent doesn't smoke around the child, their clothes smell like alcohol, they smell like alcohol, and that smell gets associated with the parent. And again, it's the context in which the parent smokes that gets associated with that smell. So for the sake of the children, it's good to stay away from these things. As I mentioned before, for a broad range of reasons, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.